All right, let's jump right into it. Welcome to this explainer on a building that genuinely just defies belief. We're talking about La Sagrada Familia. Right in the heart of Barcelona, towering above the skyline, sits what's arguably the world's most extraordinary unfinished cathedral. Now, if you've seen pictures, or maybe you've actually had the privilege of visiting, you know it's this breathtaking masterpiece. It's covered in these incredibly intricate stone carvings and radiant stained glass. But what's truly mind-blowing about this building isn't just how it looks. It's this number right here, over 140 years. That is how long this architectural marvel has been under continuous construction. Just let that time frame sink in for a second. This staggering project has literally spanned 3 centuries. It has outlived multiple generations of the very builders and craftsmen who started working on it. Which naturally leads us to the central mystery we're going to unravel today. Why on earth does a masterpiece take over 140 years to build? What makes this specific building so incredibly complex that humanity has been chipping away at it since the late 19th century, and we're still not entirely finished? Well, to really understand that, we have to look at La Sagrada Familia as more than just a monumental construction site. It's really a dream carried across generations. It's literally a physical dream that has survived the absolute toughest tests of time, of faith, art, and engineering. So today, we're going to unpack exactly how this cathedral became one of humanity's greatest architectural wonders, and we'll dive into the visionary mind that sparked the whole thing. Chapter 1. The Architect's Mind, Gaudi's Radical Natural Vision. To really grasp the sheer ambition of this project, we've got to rewind back to 1882. Originally, La Sagrada Familia was actually designed by an architect named Francisco de Paula del Villar, and he had a plan for a fairly standard, traditional church. But after some disagreements, Villar stepped down, and the very next year, a young architect named Antoni Gaudí takes over, and wow, Gaudí completely transformed the vision. He totally abandoned the conventional church idea, and instead he imagined a monumental basilica. His new blueprint was radically inspired by 3 core things: nature, religion, and incredibly complex geometry. See, Gaudí firmly believed that nature was God's greatest architect. And he was so captivated by this single powerful belief that he devoted the last decades of his life almost entirely to this project. He basically decided that if he was going to build a house for the divine, it needed to reflect the divine's own blueprints, the ones we find all around us in the natural world. Chapter 2. Stories in Stone. A forest of columns and 3 grand facades. Unlike literally any traditional cathedral you have ever walked into, La Sagrada Familia was designed to feel like a sacred, living forest. When you step inside, you don't just see rigid stone pillars. You see these massive, towering columns that actually branch outwards at the top, just like ancient trees. And they support a ceiling that mimics a lush natural canopy. Cutting right through this stone forest is sunlight, pouring in through these incredibly vibrant stained glass windows, creating this breathtaking, ever-shifting display of color. Every single detail you look at carries deep, symbolic meaning inspired directly by nature. And that rich symbolism, it extends to the outside too, literally narrating the story of Christianity across 3 drastically different stone facades. First up, you have the Nativity facade. This represents the birth of Jesus, so logically, it's packed with joyful imagery. It's just bursting with carved plants and animals. It's full of life. But then, contrast that with the Passion facade, which represents the crucifixion. It is dramatic, it's stark, and it uses these harsh, angular sculptures to create a deeply powerful emotional impact. And finally, there's the Glory facade, which is actually still being built today. This one represents humanity's journey to God and eternal life. It's an entire biblical narrative carved right into the very structure of the building. Chapter 3. Setbacks and Survival. Tragedy, War, and Resilience. Here's the wild part. Gaudí always knew he wouldn't live long enough to see his grand vision finished. We know construction kicked off in 1882, but in 1926, tragedy struck. Antoni Gaudí died suddenly after being hit by a tram, and at that moment, his life's masterpiece was less than 25% finished. They tried to keep construction going, but progress was just painfully slow. And then came a truly devastating blow, the Spanish Civil War. During the conflict, many of Gaudí's original, precious plans and physical models were completely destroyed. His exact blueprints were largely lost to the violence. But this brings us to what is perhaps the most inspiring part of this whole explainer: resilience. After the war, architects and craftsmen were left with this colossal, shattered puzzle. But they didn't give up. Instead, they just kept at it, continuing the century-old work using whatever surviving designs they could scrounge up, carefully piecing Gaudi's intent back together. They combined this immense historical dedication with modern technology to ensure the master's vision absolutely would not die. Chapter 4. Completing the century-old dream, the modern triumph. Today, thanks to cutting-edge engineering and advanced computer modeling, the pace of construction has finally accelerated. And the final vision is honestly almost difficult to wrap your head around, especially when you look at this number, 18. That's the total number of massive towers planned for the completed basilica. And they aren't just decorative spires, they explicitly represent key biblical figures: Jesus, the Virgin Mary, the 4 evangelists, and the 12 apostles. Work is aggressively continuing right this second to finish these remaining towers and all the final decorative elements. And just to cement the sheer, staggering scale of what this is ultimately going to look like, let's talk height. Over 170 meters. That is how high the tallest tower will reach when the basilica is finally finished. To put that into perspective for you, that will make La Sagrada Familia one of the tallest church structures in the entire world. It's a modern engineering marvel, but built right on top of a 19th century foundation. So, it's really no wonder that parts of the basilica have already been designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's global recognition of Gaudí's absolute genius. Today it stands as the undisputed crowning symbol of Barcelona. Millions of visitors from all over the planet travel there every single year just to experience this marvel in person. It's this perfect intersection of faith, art, engineering, and just boundless human imagination. Which leaves us with this final, fascinating thought to chew on. Is La Sagrada Familia a masterpiece of the past, or is it a marvel of the future? For well over a century, builders have labored to bring this ancient, nature-inspired vision to life using increasingly modern tools. Whether it's completely finished tomorrow or still decades from now, one thing is absolutely for sure. It remains one of humanity's greatest architectural achievements. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And hey, keep questioning the incredible structures around you.